Episode 48, and the last chance to edit out the swear words. Next week, we're live.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Dawes.
I'm starting to get slightly nervous now, Bob, about our live episode.
Yes. Well, the thing is, I'm used to live performances. It's part of my rich experience.
Well, I've done live stuff, but I've never presented, produced, and directed.
Yes.
A show live.
Well, no, I suppose not. I've done radio live.
Yes.
I haven't done television live. I think that must have been absolutely terrifying.
I've done it almost live. I've done it kind of half an hour before it goes out.
Yes. I do theatre live, although some critics have said I haven't. But I sometimes think I can remember hearing stories of actors who did live broadcasts of things like Z cars in the 60s, and there'd be sort of 12 million people.
Well, everything was live then, wasn't it?
Well, an awful lot of it was. Yes, an awful lot of it was. I kind of thought of actually. I mean, they do it on EastEnders, and has Coronation Street done a live?
I think they were the first.
Whatever.
Well, they used to do it live
over
back
Christmas.
In the 60s.
There was that Lee Mack did a live performance of his sitcom not going out. I mean, I can understand that there's the sort of, it must be fascinating to watch, but how many people are actually watching to see some sort of a car crash thing? People forgetting
that's exactly
their lives,
why I'm watching it. I watched Not Going Out. I've not watched it in years, but I watched the live one because it was live.
Yes.
Same with Mrs. Brown's Boys. They've done live ones before as well. I just like knowing that it's a novelty thing, and that they're probably sitting there with slightly brown trousers.
Well, yes. I mean, but can you imagine just waiting to go on in 1962, and there are 12 million people viewing what you get, and if you, as Dennis Norton used to say, cock it up, everyone's going to know about it. I mean, my heart went out to that terrific EastEnders actress who actually was in a scene with a fellow actor, and instead of calling her by the character's name, called her by her real name.
Yeah, that's it. Well, they were waiting for Ian Beale to come in, and rather than saying "Where's Ian," they said "Where's Adam," which is the name of the actor, Adam Woodyatt.
Oh, is that what it was?
It was brilliant.
So I don't know whether any of that's going to happen with us on Friday week.
Well, hopefully there'll be no "Where's Adam" next Friday. I mean, there'll be a bit of a problem then.
The thought of actually not only seeing us live, in this strange costume. I mean, we don't look great. Well, you look fantastic, of course, but it's not a particular look sitting here with a microphone inches from your mouth and great big earphones on.
Well, it is.
But we put vanity aside when it comes to broadcasting.
It's rough around the edges. That's Partners in Crime, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. It has been for the nearly last 50 episodes.
To put it into context for those who are new today to this episode, we are 1 year old very soon. And to celebrate that, next Friday, we are going to be presenting Partners in Crime live on video. So you'll be able to watch the episode live as we're doing it on YouTube and on Facebook. It'll be on our either our Facebook page or our group. So find those, Partners in Crime Facebook page or group, or on our YouTube channel. The links will be in the show notes for this episode, so you'll be able to go there and subscribe. UK time, it will be next Friday, which is, I believe, the 18th of January at 3 p.m. UK time. The reason we've done that is to try and catch as many viewers and listeners from around the world, because we do have people all around the world. So if you're in the US, it's 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I believe 7 a.m. Pacific time. But yeah, go off of 3 p.m. GMT next Friday. That'll be our live episode.
Yes, and if you're on the Pacific island of Fiji, it may well be 3:30 in the morning.
Well, it may well be, but I think we've only got 2 listeners in Fiji, so...
only the 2?
Yeah, but don't forget, if you can't catch it live, the episode will be available on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page/group in perpetuity. It'll be there forever, so you'll be able to watch it knowing we were presenting it live, even if you can't actually watch it live at the time. And it'll be interactive as well. If you send us messages on YouTube or on Facebook, we'll be able to see them pop up in front of us, and we'll be able to interact with you live on the show, which with a pre-recorded podcast is not something that's normally possible.
Oh, how exciting. We will be live and maybe even awake.
Live and kicking, yeah.
Yes. There we are. Well, promises. Right, well, how exciting. Shall we get down to some crime now?
Let's.
Now, the week before last, I think, was it last week? I'm losing track of episodes.
I think a couple of weeks running we've spoken about this, actually.
About Luther.
Well, yes, and the other thing that I looked at your notes, obviously misread them, but yes, there's two things there we've spoken about last year.
Oh, fine. Well, this is the third.
Do carry on.
So it's Luther. I recommended Luther, the new series of Luther. Now, I was new to this series, and of course, it has been heralded as a wonderful series, and indeed it is. Although I did see one review this week that described it as being extraordinarily ludicrous, and that wasn't necessarily a criticism. It was a part compliment as well, and I have to say, I sort of agree. I mean, I did enjoy it very much indeed. And Neil Cross is a wonderful crime writer and novelist in his own right, and he's done an extraordinary thing creating this fantastic series. At the heart of it, of course, is the mighty Idris Elba, who is magnetic in the role of Luther. But watching this one, I mean, I watched it all the way through and was thoroughly entertained and fairly gruesome in places, but that's, I guess, what you come to expect. I don't really have any criticism, apart from the simple fact that there was an awful lot going on. And not much of it was about the investigation. And let's face it, if you've got Idris Elba on screen, you don't really want to see him sitting there for minutes on end writing out reports in a police procedural way. You want to see him getting on with it. And for goodness sake, he had enough to get on with in these 4 episodes. However, very often he would actually deal with his investigation by just having a lightning inspiration about where the killer would be and whatever, with no absolute idea of how he got there. A bit like Trump, really, I guess.
It's not a police procedural series, though, is it? It is more action-based.
And is it, by George? I mean, it seems to me that Luther in this series was caught between 3 psychopaths. Is that my phone or yours?
That would be yours.
Oh, that would be mine. Let me just check and see who it is. This is the sort of thing you're not allowed to do while you're broadcasting.
And this is why live won't be an issue, because as you can tell, we don't edit anyway.
No, if it was live, I'd take the call. But I have no idea who that is. Anyway, sorry about that, listeners.
Maybe it's Neil Cross, because you were talking about his...
Well, back to the plot, and a complicated one it was. Vividly brought to life, I have to say, with, of course, the understandably very high production standards that you'd expect from a series from the BBC. So Luther's caught between a gangland psychopath, a dying psychopath on a murdering spree, and the return of well, I won't give that away, and then another psychopath turns up. So there are 3 completely different psychopathic killers, all going about their business in their own particular way. An abundance of nutty killers, but really the essence of the series was about loyalty, and this is where it scored tremendously, I think, following Luther in trying to help his fellow colleague Benny and another character who I won't mention because it's a bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it already, who he has a relationship with, and it's how he is torn apart by his different loyalties to colleagues and friends, and whilst at the same time fighting off all these other terrible cases and death and murder all around him. Apparently there's a movie on the way. I'm sure that'll be absolutely splendid. And it was a great cast, as you'd expect. I mean, obviously, Idris Elba is magnificent. Well, I'm going to have to give it away to some degree because Ruth Wilson is also superb.
I think we knew she would be there.
Well, exactly. But when you've got character actors of the quality of Dermot Crawley and Patrick Malahide, who are absolutely superb, and there was the introduction of a wonderful actress who I've not seen before, Wamni Masaku, who played a new addition to the police Force, Catherine Halliday, who is certainly one to watch in the future. So a wonderful cast, wonderful production. As the crit said that I wrote, slightly ludicrous, but none the worse for that, I don't think. It certainly kept me glued to the very end. So it's on...
to the very end of you what?
Boom, boom. So Luther, I think it's on primetime Amazon as well as the BBC catch-up around the world. So I hope you can catch it somewhere if you're listening in Fiji. Luther, created and written by Neil Cross, starring Idris Elba and Ruth Wilson and a host of other wonderful actors. Watch it and enjoy.
Yeah, well, it's on the BBC. Well, it has just finished on the BBC. You'll be able to get that on the iPlayer. Luther is also available on Netflix worldwide. I'm not sure if season 5, which is the one we're talking about, will be there just yet.
Probably not, I would have thought. They tend to come a little bit later on Netflix, don't they?
But if you're in the UK or if you're in elsewhere and you've got access to the BBC iPlayer, you can watch Luther now, or it's available, I'm reading here, on Netflix in Argentina, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Egypt, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Guatemala, Iceland, India, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Luxembourg, Mexico, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, Portugal, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Taiwan and the USA.
My goodness me. Well, to Derek and Eileen listening in Guatemala, tune in and enjoy it.
If you're in any of those countries, including Guatemala, you can at least catch up on the first 4 seasons.
That's a hell of a range, isn't it? It just shows that there's money in these programmes. If you've got a successful programme and it's sold worldwide, I know this in a limited capacity because occasionally I get a repeat fee from something I've done from Estonia or, as I said last week, Slovakia, 75 pence. It's like...
Outside Edge is huge in Mozambique.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yet another country I cannot walk the streets. For legitimate reasons. I haven't done anything wrong in them. So, yes, but obviously a worldwide hit.
But I'm 1 episode down. I've watched the first one in season 5, and I'm hoping to smash another couple tonight, maybe even 3 of them, who knows.
Well, yes, and Idris Elba, and it's going to be Luther the movie, so they say that. Neil Cross is writing it now, and apparently enjoying it from what I've read, and I'm sure he is, and so Idris will probably be doing that if he's not doing something else, like Bond.
Oh, well, who knows?
Well.
Who knows? Maybe that's why they're getting the Luther movie out of the way now, before his hands are tied for a few years.
Well, he's one of the busiest actors in the world, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean,
Would you like a conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Here on Partners in Crime. Speaking of which, actually, I'm still reading. It's a long book, but very much enjoying The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, or The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, as it's called in the US. Not entirely sure why. I hope that's not a spoiler.
Well, if you've read it, it makes it. Yes, you understand if you've read it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm halfway through. I'm kind of guessing where that might have come from, but it's a bizarre book, phenomenal book. I've never read anything quite like it in terms of its structure. I'm loving it, but all I can keep thinking as I'm reading it is this must have been an absolute git to write and to plan it and come up with the idea.
Well, yes, I mean...
And work out how to structure it.
The plotting and the prep for it must have been extraordinary, but, I mean, Stuart Turton is... having, I'd say, read the whole thing, I mean, it's a magnificent piece of work and planning and whatever, and it doesn't let you down. I mean, it really does deliver. I mean, there was a point after the first third where I thought, how can this keep this up? How can this keep these conceits up and this plot, whatever? But he does it superbly well. And I'm no doubt that everyone will be delighted to hear today that he has won the Costa First Novel Award, and hugely well deserved. I'm not sure our recommendation for the book a week and a half ago in any way influenced the judges. They did. I think
it's my book of the year. He says on the 8th of January. But I do struggle to see how it's going to be beaten, because I think it's probably my book of the last 3 or 4 years. Really, it is pretty astounding. So.
Well, I was incredibly high on my list of great reads as well. Only because it's lovely to see an author really pushing the form of the genre in different areas. I know publishers are always asking for this. They're saying, yes, we want writers to be writing things that are pushing the envelope on this and taking the genre into different areas, which, of course it has to go to keep...
It certainly does.
Yeah, and it certainly does this in a very accomplished way. So again, we're recommending to you, if you haven't already picked it up. Some of our listeners have already tweeted and sent messages saying that they have got it and they're reading it and they're loving it, and that's lovely to hear, isn't it? That maybe we've recommended something that people might not have found necessarily by themselves, and are enjoying it. So there's a great amount of satisfaction.
We get a lot of tweets, a lot of emails and things from people saying that they've bought the books that we've recommended on the show purely on our recommendation, which is very nice, also slightly scary.
Yes.
But,
well, I'm sure maybe there are occasions when we get it wrong. I hope not, but
it's all subjective, isn't it?
We do our research. It may sound as if we're flying by the seat of our pants, and on occasions, I dare say, we may be, but most of the time we do actually consider what we're saying and do our homework, which leads me to my first recommendation of the week.
Well, I was going to say, actually, I've got a segue as well.
Have you got a segue?
Yes, well, we're talking about award winners.
No, I always walk this way.
Stuart Turton with the 7 deaths or 7.5 deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, winning the Costa First Novel Award. I also wanted to mention as well that the overall winner of the Specsavers Book of the Year was announced earlier this week on Monday, and or Sunday possibly, I can't remember. But it's kind of loosely crime, depending on how political you want to be. But the winner was actually by a very good friend of mine, Adam Kay, and This Is Going to Hurt. A non-fiction book which looks at the state of the NHS in this country, and not in a dry way. It's his diaries of when he was a junior doctor.
Oh wow!
And he went all out to being sort of consultant level before leaving, and it's hilariously funny. He's a comedy writer anyway. He's written sitcoms and various things since leaving the medical profession. But yeah, his diaries of when he was a junior doctor are hilarious, heartbreaking, inspiring, and have generated a huge amount of debate in this country. This book, it's I think it's the best-selling book overall of last year, possibly. I think it's sold over 1 million copies now.
Good grief!
It's insane. He's currently writing and is in production with the TV series. There's a sitcom going out based on the book that he's writing, and that went to a big sort of auction thing, and lots of people were bidding on that, and it's done extraordinarily well. So yeah, not quite crime, but worth mentioning because
a successful book.
Yeah,
as we say, our churches is broad. You've got it up on your screen actually. Let me put my.
It's possibly the most successful book of the last year or two. It's been absolutely huge, and yeah, highly recommended.
Oh right, so there we go. The headline is Kay's This Is Going to Hurt, named Specsavers Book of the Year.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, Specsavers, sorry.
Yeah, might need to pop your specs on.
Well, that's better. Should have gone to Specsavers. Right, yeah, okay, that's good. Well, that's very good. Okay, now my recommendations. Now, we've looked at New Zealand crime fiction over the last year. We've looked at Australian crime fiction. And my recommendations today are 2 bestsellers in Canada. So, here's the first one. It is The Lost Ones by Sheena Kamal. A dark, compulsively readable psychological suspense debut, the first in a new series featuring the brilliant, fearless, chaotic and deeply flawed Nora Watts. Those are things we all like our main protagonists to be, I think. A character as heartbreakingly troubled, emotionally complex and irresistibly compelling as Stieg Larsson's Lisbeth Salander and Joe Nesbo's Harry Hole. It begins with a phone call that Nora Watts has dreaded for 15 years. Since the day she gave her newborn daughter up for adoption, Bonnie has vanished. The police consider her a chronic runaway and aren't looking, leaving her desperate adoptive parents to reach out to her birth mother as a last hope. A product of the foster system, transient, homeless, scarred by a past filled with pain and violence, Nora knows intimately what happens to vulnerable girls on the streets. Caring despite herself, she sets out to find Bonnie with her only companion, her mutt Whisper, knowing she risks reopening wounds that have never really healed, and plunging into the darkness with little to protect her but her instincts and a freakish ability to detect truth from lies. The search uncovers a puzzling conspiracy that leads Nora on a harrowing journey of deception and violence, from the gloomy, rain-soaked streets of Vancouver to the icy white mountains of the Canadian interior, to the beautiful and dangerous island where she will face her most terrifying demon, all to save a girl she wishes had never been born. Sheena Kamal was born in the Caribbean and immigrated to Canada as a child. She holds an HBA in political science from the University of Toronto and was awarded a TD Canada Trust Scholarship for community leadership and activism around the issue of homelessness. Kamal has also worked as a crime and investigative journalist, researcher for the film and television industry, academic knowledge and experience that inspired this debut novel. She lives in Vancouver, Canada. Well, that's one of the bestsellers of 2018 in Canada, and one to look out to. I have just begun it, so I cannot give a complete recommendation of it, but I tell you what, I am absolutely hooked by the first few chapters, and the reviews have been terrific. Lee Child, someone who knows his onions, says a brave, unflinching heroine and brave, unflinching writing add up to an extraordinary debut. Highly recommended.
He likes the words brave and unflinching, doesn't he?
Ah, yes. Well, these are characteristics he imbues in his own protagonist, Mr. Reacher. So, yes, that is The Lost Ones by Sheena Kamal.
Yes, and yeah, we're focusing on a couple of Canadian books this week because the podcast Partners in Crime is very gratefully sponsored by a wonderful Canadian company, well, Japanese company in a way as well, Kobo. If you are a listener to Partners in Crime, which you are, plot twist, you get an exclusive 90% off your first ebook purchase from Kobo. Just go to kobo.com, find the book you're interested in, maybe one of the ones we've spoken about today, enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and the lovely people at Kobo will give you 90% off of your first ebook purchase with them. Here comes the whistle. There we go. There we go. Hate to let them down, wouldn't you?
How much? 90%?
90%.
How lovely.
Yeah, you'll only pay 10% of the list price on your first purchase, which is extraordinarily kind and generous.
Yeah, but let me be clear, the money still goes to the author.
It does, yeah. Kobo take the hit themselves. Yeah.
They take the hit themselves on
so
that.
So feel free to buy one of ours.
Right, moving swiftly on. Now, Louise Penny is a Canadian author that we've mentioned before on this show, and her 14th book in her Chief Inspector Armand Gamache book has just come out. It's called Kingdom of the Blind. Now, Louise Penny has worked for many years for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation with expertise in hard news and current affairs. She was born and raised in Toronto, the other side from Vancouver, as we all know. We all know our Canadian geography, but now lives in a picturesque village in Quebec. Aha, yet another extraordinary place. Canada's an extraordinary place. I mean, it's such a huge, diverse and extraordinary country, and so it's interesting that these two books are being written by authors on separate areas. I mean, thousands of miles apart. Anyway, so she's an award-winning crime writer. She's won the CWA New Blood Dagger for crime fiction, the CWC Arthur Ellis Award for Best First Novel, the Agatha Award for Best Novel, and the Anthony Award for Best First Novel. I mean, lots of awards for Louise Penny. Anyway, this is her entrancing new crime thriller featuring Chief Inspector Armand Gamache from #1 New York Times
joining in, by the way, in the background.
He's probably, hopefully, too young to have read Kingdom of the Blind. But anyway, it's Ellie Griffith, our lovely Ellie Griffith, has described this book as a wonderful addition to a fantastic series. So the new book, when Armand Gamache receives a letter inviting him to an abandoned farmhouse outside Three Pines, the former head of the Quebec police discovers that a complex stranger, not a complex one, I'm sure it's a complete stranger and a complex one.
You were saying about Specsavers?
Yeah, I'm actually struggling a little bit. I think I'm going to have to go back and get my prescription.
Good job we're not live next week.
As named, let's start that again. When Armand Gamache receives a letter inviting him to an abandoned farmhouse outside of Three Pines, the chief inspector discovers that a complete stranger has named him as an executor of her will. Armand never knew the elderly woman, and the bequests are so wildly unlikely that he suspects the woman must have been delusional until a body is found, and the terms of the bizarre document suddenly seem far more menacing. But it isn't the only menace Gamache is facing. The investigation into the events that led to his suspension has dragged on, and Armand is taking increasingly desperate measures to rectify previous actions. As he does, Armand Gamache begins to see his own blind spots and the terrible things hiding there. Now, praise for the Armand Gamache series include The Times saying one of the most interesting detectives in crime fiction. Kate Moss says, wonderfully satisfying. Now, I haven't started to read this latest book, but I have read Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny, which was written in 2010. Which was a terrific read. I've got some stuff on it here. Again, it's set in Quebec City, and she's trying to solve the murder of a man. This is Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny. Trying to solve the murder of a man who spent his entire life in search of Samuel de Chapelin's burial site. Inspector Beauvoir is back in Three Pines, trying to tie up loose ends from their previous investigation from the book The Brutal Telling. This is actually come from Crime Fiction Lover, this little section. So this is what they say.
3 shows in a row they've had a mention.
Well, they're very good. They're absolutely brilliant. And they say, this is still my favourite in the series for various reasons. I felt like Louise Penny was exploring new territory in this one. Not just a new setting, but she went deeper into Gamache's psyche and showed his vulnerability. It is the moving portrait of a man haunted by his work, by the accumulation of victims. So that's 2 books. I mean, I've read Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny, and it was absolutely, although it was, I don't know, I think it's maybe 9 or 10 in the series. Doesn't matter. You can read each book individually, of course. And is that James?
He's determined to get on the show, isn't he?
This is the first time. This is the audio equivalent of that.
Shall we get him on? Should we get him on?
Yeah, bring him in. Just see if he's got any crime.
One moment, listeners.
He's coming up for his 2nd birthday, so I hope he hasn't got any crime fiction recommendations. That would be a bit weird. Adam has left the studio, ladies and gentlemen.
He's gone downstairs.
And he's gone downstairs. So we're going to have to... well, I suppose that was sort of James's debut as a broadcaster.
It was, yeah. I'm going to save that and play it back to him when he's 18.
Yeah, so it will come back to haunt him. This is what you sounded like in 2019.
Maybe if he's a big film star, I'll go on one of those, when they were first broadcast shows that goes out when you see them all as kids.
Before they were famous.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yes, before they went out and became very successful and kept their parents in the manner to which they'd become accustomed. So anyway, so that's my second Canadian crime writer, Louise Penny, and please look her up and download her books because I think she's a terrific writer among many very fine Canadian crime writers. We've only been able to have time to do 2 this week, but there are many, many others which we will be recommending in future episodes.
Yes, you've got a busy week coming up, haven't you, before our live?
Yes, I'm going to be doing some speaking, which is I'm going on a cruise. It's a busman's holiday before you go. Oh my God, what a luxury! I'll be working quite hard. I'm doing 3 talks about crime writing and acting and about myself. It's rather terrifying, really, because for 40 years I've been an actor, and the wonderful thing about being an actor is you are hiding behind your characters. You are being someone else, albeit basically it's still your face out there, and you imbue any character with aspects of yourself, I guess. So there may be some clues, but this is just me standing up and talking, and I have to be absolutely honest, I'm rather terrified.
But you will be cruising around the Caribbean and all sorts of things.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be absolutely lovely. Apart from the fact, may I draw your attention? No, I'm not doing the Caribbean. I'll be across the Bay of Biscay, which, of course, in January is perfect timing to actually trot across that particular volatile piece of water. So
I thought you were doing Mexico and around that area.
Yeah, later on. Yes, I am. Yes,
that's the other cruise.
So I mean, I am looking forward to it in many ways. I've never been on a ship before. I've never cruised before, so that's going to be a bit of an eye-opener. But there's this terrifying thought: if I'm absolutely terrible, you can't escape your audience. So
you can't get on the train, can you?
You can't. You can't nip out of the theatre or the cinema or whatever and get in the car and drive away. You're there through the weeks with everyone telling you how rubbish you are. I hope that won't happen, but if it does, I hope that people will be kind. So yes, so I'm going to be busy, but I will be back in time for Partners in Crime Goes Live on the 18th.
Yes, well, we're very much looking forward to that. That will be our next episode, and it will be completely live and completely scary as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I find it being pretty scary not being live, actually.
Well, don't forget, I was going to mention as well, just to completely clarify, won't be live in terms of the podcast on iTunes and various other things. So if you normally listen through iTunes or through Stitcher or Google Play or any of these outlets, don't expect to find us there on Friday. The audio from the live episode will go up there a day or so after. But the live video will be available. You better watch us live on YouTube and Facebook only. So if you want to catch us live, you have to go to the YouTube Partners in Crime channel or to Partners in Crime page and group on Facebook.
Right, so there we are. So we are going to be live and partly live.
Yes, well, yeah, you'll still be able to listen to it and it'll be done as live. Yeah,
but you'll still be able to see any mistakes that occur.
Oh, absolutely.
Even on the recorded version, of which I'm sure there will be many. Because Adam is going to be, he's got a new piece of software that makes all this possible. He's really gone up to warp factor 8 as regards this. So he will not only be talking and trying to make sense, as we both attempt to do, he'll also be, literally, as he always does, producing the show, but on a far greater scope than normal. So it's going to be quite interesting.
But there are normally things I can leave for afterwards in the edit for in terms of the production side of things, but everything has to be done on the fly when it's live, so it's going to be tricky, and it's going to be a lot of fun and probably more chaotic than our pre-recorded ones, which are generally fairly chaotic anyway.
How many cameras are you going to have on us?
I'm not sure yet.
Not
sure yet. At least one, possibly two, we'll see.
Oh, possibly two, so you'll be able to flip from one to another.
Yes, and again that will have to be done manually on the fly as we're talking, as we're doing things. So lots of fun. But that'll be 3 p.m. UK time next Friday, the 18th of January 2019. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, and 3 hours before that's 10 a.m. Eastern in the US and 7 a.m. West Coast, I think. But just to double check, 3 o'clock GMT on the 18th. If you go from that for your local time zone, on our YouTube channel and Facebook page/group.
I'm going to go out this afternoon and buy a costume.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Dawes and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.